What if I told you Verstappen's last shot at the title doesn't come from the car but from what Red Bull just discovered in the simulator? Just days before the Las Vegas Grand Prix, Laurent Mekies saw something shocking in Verstappen's virtual telemetry data that could change everything we thought about the championship. He's 49 points behind Norris, with only 58 left on the table. One bad result in Vegas, and it's over. But the simulator says otherwise. And if you want the full breakdown of what they found, hit subscribe, because this changes the entire story. 3 races to go. 58 points left on the table. And Max Verstappen, a 4-time world champion, is staring down a deficit of 49. On paper, this title fight looks over. Lando Norris is in the form of his life, McLaren is flying, and Oscar Piastri is still mathematically in contention. But if you think Verstappen is done, you've never seen how he prepares when everything's on the line, not on the track, but inside Red Bull's simulator in Milton Keynes. This week, reports surfaced that Laurent Mekies, visiting the Red Bull facility on behalf of a future technical project, witnessed something deeply unexpected: Verstappen running ultra-specific, high-stress race simulations of the Las Vegas Grand Prix, hundreds of them focused entirely on unpredictable conditions, extreme tire degradation, and low grip. These weren't baseline sims. These were war drills. And what startled Mekies was how quickly Verstappen adapted not just to the car, but to every variable thrown at him. This wasn't just preparation. It was an obsession. Why does it matter? Because Las Vegas is chaos. The track layout is stop-start. The surface is low grip. Temperatures crash at night. And most crucially, it's a circuit that broke McLaren last year. Verstappen's margin for error is gone. If Norris finishes ahead of him and scores more than 9 points, the championship is mathematically out of reach. But Red Bull doesn't just see a race, they see a strategic ambush. And it begins in that simulator room, where Verstappen's every move is now laser-focused on creating the one scenario where the title stays alive. While the rest of the paddock sees the Vegas GP as a showpiece, Verstappen sees it as the pivot point. Because in his mind, the World Championship isn't over until the numbers say it is. That's what separates him. He doesn't race for hope, he races for margins. He knows exactly what Norris needs to do to seal it. And he knows exactly where to strike if McLaren stumbles. The simulator isn't just practice. It's pre-fight recon. It's where he's building the version of himself that can survive in the narrowest possible window. The data being run at Red Bull right now isn't focused on dominance, it's focused on chaos survival. Verstappen is testing race starts from mid-grid. He's simulating early safety cars, double stack scenarios, alternate tire compounds, and undercut patterns. Mekies reportedly called the approach terrifyingly detailed. And that's the key: Verstappen isn't playing to win the race. He's playing to break the championship script. And if that means dragging it into Qatar with a title still on the table, then every variable must be mastered before Saturday night. What no one's showing you is that Max Verstappen hasn't surrendered, he's recalibrated. The old Verstappen overpowered races. This version reverse engineers survival routes. And the most dangerous thing about him right now is not the car, it's the clarity. The clarity that the only way to stay alive is to engineer chaos for everyone else, and control it better than anyone else can. In Las Vegas, Verstappen isn't chasing a miracle. He's building a trap. Quietly. From the dark, cold comfort of a simulator. Max Verstappen is 49 points behind Lando Norris with only 58 left in play. That gap alone tells a brutal story: one mistake, one mechanical issue, one off weekend, and it's over. Verstappen no longer controls his destiny. Even if he wins all 3 remaining races, Las Vegas, Qatar, and Abu Dhabi, he still needs Norris to slip. But what makes this moment fascinating is how Verstappen approaches it, not emotionally, not erratically, but mathematically. He knows the exact combination of outcomes required to keep his hopes alive. To extend the championship beyond Vegas, Verstappen must outscore Norris by at least 10 points on Saturday night. A race win with fastest lap would earn him 26. If Norris finishes 5th or lower, Verstappen stays in the fight. But that margin is razor thin. Because if Norris finishes 4th, the gap remains over 25. And that's the cutoff. Once a driver leads by 26 or more with 2 races left, the title is locked. That means even a podium for Norris in Vegas could kill Verstappen's bid regardless of how dominant Max is. Then there's Oscar Piastri, who sits between them as the statistical spoiler. He's closer to Norris than Verstappen is, and theoretically still in play. But he's not the threat, he's the wild card. If Piastri finishes ahead of both, it complicates Verstappen's survival model. Because the Australian would then cut into both their points, which would benefit Verstappen only if Norris slips further. In that case, Max doesn't just need a win, he needs a buffer behind him. The permutations become delicate. The margin for error disappears. What Verstappen needs most is volatility. A race with safety cars. A race with tire degradation. A race with pit lane errors and unpredictable stints. Because in a clean race, Norris has the tools to protect his lead, defend, manage, finish P3 or P4 and end the championship right there. But if chaos strikes, if McLaren gambles on strategy and gets it wrong, Verstappen can exploit every gap. That's why Red Bull is leaning into aggressive calls this weekend. Not to dominate but to destabilize. The other element no one is discussing is qualifying. Las Vegas is in Monaco, but grid position here matters more than expected. The long straights reward top speed, but the braking zones punish poor tire prep. Verstappen's one-lap pace has been strong but not perfect this season. If he starts behind both McLarens, the odds shrink. But if he qualifies on pole, with Norris in the second row or lower, the entire story changes. Suddenly, the race becomes a pressure test not for Verstappen, but for Norris, who's never had to defend a title lead on a Saturday night street circuit. Ultimately, the numbers say this: Verstappen is not favored. But he's not eliminated. He doesn't need miracles. He needs precision, chaos, and just enough hesitation from McLaren to keep the door open. Because once the championship goes to Qatar, everything resets. Night race. Heat. Strategy. And in that scenario, Verstappen comes alive. But to get there, he has to survive Vegas with more than just a win. He needs a dent in Norris's armor. And that's exactly what he's simulating for. Red Bull's simulator is not a gaming rig, it's a race laboratory. Developed in-house over a decade and refined through every regulation era, the system recreates track conditions with brutal accuracy. Wind load, track temperature, grip evolution, fuel depletion, everything is simulated in real time with millimetric fidelity. But what separates Red Bull's simulator from the rest isn't the hardware, it's who uses it. And Max Verstappen is not just fast on track, he's one of the most efficient development drivers in the sport when it comes to sim work. In the past month, Verstappen has spent more time in the sim than any other top driver. That's not speculation, that's confirmed by team insiders. What's he working on? Las Vegas. Over and over again. Not just ideal laps, but worst-case scenarios: cold tires on lap 1, multiple safety car interruptions, undercut timing, high-traffic re-entries, and even compromised quali positions. He's not preparing for a dominant win. He's preparing for survival in every single variation of chaos. That level of preparation is what gives him an edge, even when the odds say he's out. Verstappen's driving style is naturally aggressive, but his approach to sim work is surgical. He doesn't chase hot laps. He chases stability. He wants to feel the limit of the tire grip through digital feedback, lap after lap, under evolving conditions. This is where his real genius comes through. He builds internal muscle memory through virtual repetition, so that when the real car hits the track, his reactions are instant. There's no learning curve for Max, he already lived the scenario the night before. The Red Bull engineers feeding him data aren't just sending theoretical models. They're integrating live feedback from Milton Keynes and correlating it with previous Vegas degradation profiles, track temperatures, and tire carcass behavior. That means Verstappen isn't just driving a guess, he's piloting a projection based on real-world tendencies. Laurent Mekies, who observed a recent session, reportedly said it was disturbing how closely Max's lines matched reality. And that's the point. For Verstappen, the simulator is no longer prep, it's rehearsal. McLaren may have the momentum, but Verstappen has something more dangerous: foresight. The simulator allows him to practice defending on cold tires, managing oversteer through low-grip corners, even executing double pit stops without track position loss. These are not flashy skills, they're survival tools. And in a circuit like Vegas, where every lap is a gamble, those tools are priceless. Norris and Piastri are fast, no question. But Max has built a mental map of this race that's already been driven 1,000 times virtually, but with intent. That's why Red Bull hasn't panicked. Because behind the scenes, they know what Verstappen's doing. He's not hoping for a miracle. He's engineering an opportunity, one variable at a time. And when the moment comes, a safety car, a botched strategy, a tire window miscalculation from McLaren, Max will be ready, not because he's lucky, but because he's been there before. Not in real life but in the simulator, where champions aren't just made, they're rebuilt, one scenario at a time. If Verstappen fails to outscore Norris by at least 10 points in Las Vegas, the championship is gone. Not symbolically, mathematically. The numbers would close in, the season would be sealed, and a fifth world title would officially be out of reach. That's not just a loss. That's a closed door. A driver who has defined modern Formula One by dominating every format, every circuit, and every rival, would be forced to hand over the crown before reaching Abu Dhabi. And that's something Max Verstappen has never experienced in the turbo-hybrid era, losing while still fighting. The psychological blow would be significant. Verstappen doesn't fear losing. But he hates being irrelevant. And if Norris seals the title in Vegas, the final two races become a formality, not a fight. Verstappen, who races with fury even in meaningless laps, would now face a spotlight with nothing left to chase. For a driver used to bending weekends around his will, that emptiness cuts deep. And in the paddock, narratives would shift immediately. From unstoppable champion to dethroned at the hands of a younger generation. The media wouldn't miss that. It would also reshape the Verstappen-Red Bull dynamic. This team has spent 3 years building a car around Verstappen's feedback, Verstappen's driving style, Verstappen's strategy patterns. But if that model fails to secure a title even in a season where they let early technical questions arise, did they over-optimize for one driver? Did the rest of the field catch up while they stayed static? And more dangerously, what happens when Max starts to doubt that Red Bull can bring him back to the top in 2026, when the new engine era begins?